Good morning. How are we doing? Fantastic. Well, I'm so glad you're with us this morning. We're continuing our series, Come and See. And we've been going through, if you're a first-time guest, I want to say welcome. And we're kind of catch you up to speed. We're going through the book of John. We've been going through chapter by chapter. So if you've missed any of that, you can go on our website or to our YouTube channel and check those messages out. But we're going through, and what I love about the Gospel of John is John is a disciple of Jesus. So he has a first-hand view of everything that's going on. And all through that gospel, there's this invitation to come and see. There's multiple times where people say, come and see. I feel like there's a bug flying around me. Is that, I don't know. Was there? It's like, okay, awesome. Of course he went in my hair. That's where all the good stuff's at. This constant invitation to come and see, and people their lives were changed, and that's really the invitation for us. John is writing this gospel in such a way that he's inviting people to come and have an experience with Jesus, because he had an experience with Jesus, and it changed his life so radically that he wanted other people's lives to be changed as well. So this morning we're in John chapter 15. So if you'll get there now, John chapter 15, it's kind of an interesting time. Mark last week talked about the upper room and what was happening in the upper room, and Jesus washing the disciples' feet. Well, now we're leaving the upper room. We're still in the last kind of 24-hour period of Jesus' life, and Jesus is heading with his disciples to the Garden of Gethsemane. Now, Jesus knows his life is not long from being taken from him. He knows that Judas is going to show up on the scene. They're going to turn him over, and he's walking to the garden. And in this moment, in John 15, actually the next the next couple of chapters, Jesus is giving one of his longest teachings in all of the Gospels. Okay, so he's at this moment that he's really wanting to have a serious conversation, and it's one of those guys you better pay attention kind of talks, okay? And that's what's happening. So we're in John 15, and he's wanting to leave them with some significant things that they need to be able to hang on to and know as Jesus prepares to go through the things that he's going to go through. They're going to see Jesus handed over to the authorities, and what are they going to do? And Jesus begins to kind of share with them in a large context of what they need to stay focused on. They're going to see him hung on the cross. Jesus is trying to get them focused on what matters most. So he knew these guys would need a clear understanding of not only their position, but really what's expected of them. So I want to start in verses 1 and 2 of John 15. If you're following along on your device, or you can follow along with me on the screen. Jesus says, I am the true grapevine, and my Father is the gardener. He cuts off every branch of mine that doesn't produce fruit, and he prunes the branches that do bear fruit so they will produce even more. Okay, so he's talking here about gardening at some level, okay, and he's talking about God being the gardener, and he's getting rid of branches that don't matter. He's pruning the ones that do. And if you're following along, jump down to verse 4. Then he says, "Remain in me," and this is worth highlighting. We're going to come back to this at the end of the message. "Remain in me, and I will remain in you. For a branch cannot produce fruit if it's severed from the vine." Okay? I think we all know that, right? "And you cannot be fruitful unless you remain in me." Now, there's a lot happening here, and if you read the Gospels, Jesus oftentimes used object lessons around things that were culturally relevant in those times. So some 2,000 years later, we read the Gospels and we think, oh man, I don't know that I fully understand this, because farming has changed drastically in our culture, right? Because of the modern machinery and technology and all of those things. So sometimes you have to kind of dig in and find out what was happening back then. But what's interesting in what Jesus is talking about here is growing grapes. And what's intriguing in the farming world is there's not a lot that's changed in growing grapes, even in our culture today, okay? They're still very, very similar to the way they did it some 2,000 years ago. And I found some interesting facts as I was doing some research on this. Grapes are the most widely grown fruit in the entire world, okay? Thought that was really interesting. The quality of the vine is only as good as the root system. A lot of spiritual lessons there. Good roots allow the vine to produce, okay, I found this fascinating, for as up to 100 or more years. There's a good root system, and the farmer and gardener takes care of the grapevine. It can produce for up to or over 100 years. And the thing I thought the most intriguing was new plants are pruned 3 to 5 years. They're trained before they're ever actually allowed to produce a large enough crop to harvest. Okay? Now, Jesus knew all of these things, and he's kind of pointing back the disciples and pointing us to something that's incredibly important in our spiritual life. Jesus is talking about that. He's talking about something that everyone would understand, and he's taking that and he's moving it to a much deeper level. Everybody understood grapes, but now he's applying some spiritual life to it. And he's saying, look, I'm the vine, God the Father is the gardener, and you're the branch. I'm the vine, you're the branch, God's the gardener. Now I want to stop for just a second and ask, why would Jesus talk about gardeners, vines, and branches? Like, what's the point? And if we aren't careful, I think we can easily miss really what Jesus is trying to dig down to at a deeper level. Remember, Jesus knows his life is about to end. He's talking with his 11 closest friends. Judas has already left. He's going to be turning him in for 30 pieces of silver. And he wants to leverage his time, Jesus' time, that he has left with the disciples, the 11 that he has with him. And in this moment, Jesus is reminding these guys of their purpose in life. Notice, he's not going to talk about what they do for a living. He's not going to talk to them about the money that they will make. He's not going to talk to them about how big their house is, the career path that they will take, the people that they will know, how many followers they have on social media. None of that stuff ultimately is important in this moment. None of that stuff, however, is bad in and of itself. It's just not the most important things. So Jesus is kind of drilling down to the primary purpose. And he's saying our primary purpose in life is to be connected to our Creator. And if you miss that, then what ends up happening is we spend our lives trying to connect ourselves to other things, connecting ourselves to things that we think will bring us joy, that we think will bring us fulfillment. But all we'll really do is leave us empty and unfulfilled. And Jesus is saying, look, this is the most important thing in life that you need to know. I'm the vine, you're the branch. You stay connected to me, and you're going to have a productive life. Now, we must understand that a branch has value and purpose, but it only has value and purpose if it's what? Connected to the vine, right? It has no purpose if it breaks off. It's just going to wither, it's going to dry, and it's going to be worthless, and Jesus is going to talk about that. Well, jump back to, I want to go back to verse 4. He says, remain in me, and I will remain in you, for a branch cannot produce fruit if it's severed from the vine. We know this. And you cannot be fruitful unless you remain in me. No matter what you do in life, no matter what you go after, ultimately will not be fruitful. But what we sure try to do, though, is produce fruit and not be connected to the vine, don't we? And I think we're all guilty of this. When the alarm goes off, our feet hit the floor, we quickly get ourselves ready. Okay, some of you, maybe not as quickly as others. I'm not a morning person. I'm kind of groggy and grumpy in the morning. But we all get up and we kind of do the thing. I tell everybody I'm a night owl because I love to be. I'm a morning person because I have to be, okay? I got to get my kids ready for school. We got to get things moving. And after we get ready, we grab a cup of coffee, maybe a piece of fruit. We jam a granola bar down our throat, whatever it is. Maybe you drive through McDonald's and get an Egg McMuffin. No judgment here, okay? We check our email. We check our social media. We get into a bunch of phone calls. We go into a bunch of meetings. We do all the work that we need to do. And then our work day is over. We get in our car. We get home. We yell at our kids to get their homework done. We rush them off to some sort of extracurricular activities. We hit the grocery store in between because we got to have enough food in the refrigerator for the week. Maybe we swing through a drive-through. We grab some food on the way home. Maybe not. Maybe we throw a frozen pizza in the oven and we have that for dinner. Then we get everyone showered. We get them ready for bed. We finally walk into our living room. We crash down on our couch. We turn on our TV. We watch a Netflix show. We fall asleep halfway through it. And then we wake up an hour later and we go to bed and we start that routine all over again. Can I get an amen? Yeah, see, some of you are like, that's my life. And maybe it's a little different for you. Maybe you're a young adult and you're in college, and I get it. You're not running around trying to get kids frantically ready. You're running around trying to figure out what you're going to do with your life. You're going to study for tests that you're going to think are completely pointless and worthless and have nothing to do with the career path that you're on, but you have to do well in order to have that program. Or maybe you're retired, okay? I don't like you. Sorry. You know, that's the goal. No, I'm kidding. My dad actually said he works harder now being retired than he did when he was working. He asked for grandkids. We gave him 13. Enjoy, okay? Regardless of where you're at in life, though, we're always running and going. It doesn't matter. And regardless of the situation, there will come a day, and I promise you this, okay? I had this happen to me just a couple of years ago. There will come a day, if it hasn't already happened, you're going to be either driving down the road, you're going to be laying in the bed staring at the ceiling, you're going to be wandering around maybe in the woods or walking around a pond. You're going to have a moment of stillness and quiet, and you're going to ask the question, is this it? Is this it? Is this all there is? I mean, after all, I know I'm really busy. I've got a lot on my calendar. My to-do list is full. But truth be told, I'm not really fulfilled. There's something missing in my life. I had that happen a few years ago. I'm just like, man, is this it, God? Is this where you want me? Is this what you want me doing? Is this all that there's going to be? You know, I hear a lot of talk these days about dreams. Seems like we're raising a generation of young people who believe their purpose in life is to achieve their dreams. And I believe that in and of themselves, or if they believe in and of themselves enough, if they work hard enough, then they can accomplish those dreams. And if we're not careful, we can actually even sort of encourage that unintentionally. And don't misunderstand me, I'm not against dreams, I'm not against goals. But here's my question. Where's God in all of it? Where's God in your dreams? Author and speaker Christine Caine said it this way recently. She said, we've raised an entire generation that have stopped following Jesus and started following their dreams. And then she followed it up with this statement or this quote. She says, follow Christ and your dreams will follow you. If you follow Christ, your dreams will follow you. See, if you want to fulfill the purpose that God has for your life, if you want to do what the creator of the world has created you to do, then stay connected to him. Stay connected to Christ. See, I think every one of us want to live a productive life. I think every one of us wants our lives to count for something. And I think that's incredibly noble, and we should. And Jesus is saying, look, come and see, and I will show you what life really worth living is all about. But you have to choose. Do you want to live in the world, or do you want to live in me? And what I think we're going to find, according to Jesus, and this is the thing that I think many, many, many people wrestle with, is that our purpose is not the same thing as our career. And I think we miss that a lot. I think we think our purpose, God wired me to do a certain thing, so this must be my purpose in life. And we tend to see these as one and the same. But your purpose isn't the same thing as your success. See, it's not about people liking you. It's not about people looking up to you. It's not about people thinking that you're successful. Your purpose isn't even who you are, your talents, your abilities, your education, your production, or your experience. That's not it. You know what your purpose is? Your purpose is this. Your purpose has nothing to do with who you are, but has everything to do with who you are what? Connected to. It's who you are connected to. The truth is, in life, oftentimes we miss that, okay? And we try to live a life in such a way that we think, man, if I can just accomplish the things that God has wired me to do, that's my purpose, and I'm going to live and fulfill my purpose, and that's not it. So this morning, I want to share two ways that I believe this passage of Scripture is trying to show us how to live a productive life. And the first is this. It's obvious. Stay connected to Christ, right? We live in a world that is obsessed with staying connected. How many of you have a cell phone with you right now this morning? Let's have a little fun. No shame in it, all right? This isn't I'm going to beat you up or anything, okay? It's interesting. Research shows that 80% of the American population, okay, will do this before anything else when they first get out of bed, and that is check your phone. 80% of Americans will check their phone before they go to the bathroom, brush their teeth, or get a cup of coffee. Some of you, because you lay in bed too long and you have to go to the bathroom so badly, you grab your phone and check it on the way to the bathroom, which is really disgusting and sick. 80% of people jump on to check email, to check social media. I got to ask, have you ever seen anybody lose their phone that's like totally connected to it? I'm going to give you a Thanksgiving challenge, and you're going to thank me for it later. When you're with your family, whoever that family member is that freaks out and cannot live without their phone, it's like an appendage to them, hide it somewhere in your house, okay? And then watch them frantically look for it. Oh my gosh, where's my phone? Where's my phone? Where's my phone? Oh my gosh, I need to find my phone. And just sit back and enjoy the show, because it will be a show as they tear your house up. Okay? But truth is, if we're honest, most of us are too connected to our phones. We're too connected to the things in our world. And I want to ask this. If you were disconnected from Jesus, would you feel it like you feel it when you lose your phone? That's a hard question to answer, isn't it? Would there be something in you that says, oh my gosh, man, I've not connected with Jesus like I should? Maybe if you've not connected with him in 3 or 4 days, do you feel it? You ever say, man, I've been running like a chicken with my head cut off over the past several days, and truthfully, it's just because I haven't connected with Jesus like I should. I have to be honest here, when I'm not connected to Jesus on a regular basis, not only can I feel it, but truth be told, the people around me can feel it, and they can feel it a lot. My kids might not walk in the kitchen and say, hey, Dad's not been connected to Jesus lately. No, they would say it like this. You know, Dad's been on edge a lot the past few days. He's just not a lot of fun to be around. My wife would articulate it this way. We've had these conversations a lot. In only the way that she can do it, she'll turn and go, hey, is everything all right? Because you just seem on edge. See, it might show itself in being short and being curt, being edgy, being in a bad mood, maybe being distant. But just to be completely honest with you, it's really because I've disconnected with Jesus. And I find when I'm connected with him and I'm firing on all cylinders, I'm a lot more fun to be around. I'm a lot more at peace. I'm not as edgy. And here's what this means. Spending time with Jesus is not optional. It's not an optional thing. It's not something we get to say, hey, if I've got time, then I'll connect with Jesus at the end of the day. No, that's not it. And hear me, don't miss this. When you're connected to Jesus, that's where ultimately you receive life. That's where you draw strength. That's where you draw wisdom and peace and courage and patience and love. And I wonder what would happen if each of us today made the decision right now that we would connect with Jesus before we would connect to our Wi-Fi or our phone. How our life would look different. I'm curious what difference that would make. That we would get our identity from our Creator and not from some social media post. That we would get our purpose from our Creator and not what the world says about us. That we would get fulfillment from what our Creator thinks and not what others think around us. See, Jesus says it this way in verse 5 of John 15. He says, yes, I am the vine and you are the branch. Those who remain in me and I in them will what? Will produce much fruit. For apart from me, though, you can do what? Nothing. In other words, your production has everything to do with your connection. Apart from me, you can do nothing, though, which it begs the question. And I don't know about you, but I kind of have a snarky side of me that likes to ask difficult questions. And I read this passage of Scripture, and I'm like, really? Because if that's the case, apart from me, you can have nothing, then why in the world is there a whole lot of people who are not connected to Jesus doing a lot of really cool things and having way more than I have? You ever had that conversation with Jesus before? See, we see people every day not connected, yet a lot seems to be happening. So what does it mean when Jesus says, apart from me, you can do nothing? Well, it finally hit me after doing some research. He's talking about nothing that will last. Yes, there are people who are not connected to God, who are doing, some of which are doing really good things, some of which are doing very questionable things, and you wonder, how are they getting it? And sometimes those things might last 20, 30, 50, maybe even 100 years, but are you ready for this? It won't last for eternity. It won't. Because see, in eternity, people will matter. In eternity, what matters is the realization that there's a heaven and that there's a hell. That will matter. See, I think that's why we exist as a church. We exist as a church because we want people to see that a life with Jesus matters, and it doesn't matter maybe over the next few years or maybe over the next few decades while you're living your best life now, but hear me, one day your life is going to come to a close. We're all going to face it. And hear me, you're not going to give an account of your life to other people. You're not. It's not going to be a popularity contest. It's not going to be how many followers did you have on Instagram, Sean? Okay, you get in. It's going to be, did you have a relationship with my son? See, other people's approval and what you did and what you did on this earth and what you accomplished, how much money you have, how much power and position you have, how many toys you possess, it doesn't matter. You know why? Because you can't take it with you. You can't. I found a great meme here a couple of weeks ago, and it just pretty much sums it up, don't you think? As I see that, I'm like, well, yeah, that's true. It doesn't matter the dump that you live in or the most amazing house that you live in. At the end of it all, guess what we get? We get a hole that they place a casket. Jesus says, apart from me, you can do nothing. Back when I was a children's pastor, I used to teach the kids the song. We actually still sing it. It's the Fruit of the Spirit song. If you've been in our children's ministry, some of you were kids in my ministry, and you sang that song. And we would go to camp, and people would love it. I'm not going to sing it for you. I'm not going to torture you that way. But in the lyrics, the fruit of the Spirit's not a coconut, and it's kind of funny, and you have all these hand motions. And then it gets to the chorus of the song. But the fruit of the Spirit is love. I am going to sing you this part. Love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, and self-control. And you do the whole hand jive. It took me hours. I'm like, I am not coordinated enough to do all these things and sing this song. But I can tell you there's a lot of people who are adults now that walk around and they know that song and they've remembered it and they know the fruit of the Spirit. Love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, gentleness, faithfulness, and self-control. See, when we stay connected to the vine, that's the kind of fruit that grows in our life. That's what we want. Isn't that what we want in our culture? Can we all agree that's what's lacking? I mean, think about it. How much better of a spouse, how much better of a parent, a friend, a coworker would you be if that's the kind of fruit that you have in your life? And I get it. We're not all there. We're all works in progress. But think about how much better our kids would be. My kids don't need new modern parenting skills. They don't. You know what they need? They need a dad who's patient and has self-control. And I work on it daily. My wife doesn't need me to look like the guy on the cover of GQ magazine. Lucky for her, I do, but she doesn't need that. What she needs is more joy, more love, and more gentleness. I don't know why you guys laughed at that, truthfully. My coworkers don't need me to learn the latest and greatest leadership tips. Yes, they're important, but they need more kindness and more peace and more goodness. And we just need to acknowledge some of those things and begin to work on those things. We don't need new and better fads, trends of what's happening. We just simply need to stay connected to Jesus. Back in 2018, because of a friend of ours, they were able to connect us. My daughter, my youngest daughter, all she's wanted to be is a veterinarian. The whole time, well, there was this one year she wanted to be a Japanese person, but she finally learned that's not an option. So from that point on, she's always wanted to be a veterinarian. And this friend of ours connected us with a friend of hers that was one of the vets at one of the local zoos. And we got a behind-the-scenes tour of the vet clinic. And it was an amazing experience for her. I'll never forget, as a dad, and I owe this friend of mine, who I hope is here this morning, I owe her dearly because I heard the words, "Daddy, this was the best day of my life." And as a dad, you're like, yes, those are the words you live for, right? Those moments. So what they didn't tell us was part of their surprise to us was we were going to get to see a newborn baby rhino that was not up for the public to view yet. So they took us back, and again, watching my little girl, watching her react and seeing all this. And so we got to go in. The first thing I noticed was how big the steel gates were. But what I noticed next was how the baby and the baby always stayed very close to the mom. Okay, and she was always aware. And what was interesting was the mom was always aware as well of where baby was. Now, at one point, the baby got close enough that the handler of the animals, the zookeeper, was like, "Oh, you can pet. Mom's not going to get out of control." So you're watching your daughter pet this baby rhino, and then very quickly, not aggressively or anything, mom made her presence known. Okay, and she just sort of showed up, and baby, you could tell, never moved, kind of stayed there, right around mom. Mom, we petted mom, and again, not aggressive, but just present. Now, here's what's interesting. Never once again did that baby get far from its mama. And when you stay connected to Jesus Christ like a branch connected to the vine, that's when you're safest. That's when you're at your absolute best. And here's the thing. God promises to never leave us. When we're connected to his son, when we're connected to him, he's with us as well, just like the mama is with the baby. But yet when we start to drift away, that's when we become more vulnerable. Everyone I've ever talked to that has done something that has risked a marriage, that has ruined a relationship, that has lost a job, that has messed up a friendship, maybe messed up relationships with their kids, every single person who's done something that they wish that they wouldn't have, hear me. I've had hundreds, if not thousands of these conversations. They'll say things like this. I stopped coming to church. I wasn't in my Bible like I used to be. I started pulling back from my community group and my Christian friends. I stopped listening to those who had my best interest in mind, and I made a lot of mistakes. See, to put it simply, you stop being connected to the vine, and that's when we're at our greatest risk. And we're foolish enough to believe that we can do life without Jesus, so we disconnect ourselves thinking we've got it all under control. And then we wonder why, when things go wrong and things get out of hand, how it absolutely happened. Jesus said in verses 6 and 7, "Anyone who does not remain in me is thrown away like a useless branch, and it withers. Such branches are gathered into a pile and are burned. But if you remain in me, and my words remain in you, you may ask for anything you want, and it will be granted." So if you disconnect, you're going to become like a branch that's ended up going to be burned and just tossed away. However, if you remain in me, you'll get anything you ask. Now, there's some theological issues here that a lot of people grab a hold of and they take completely out of context. And if you're not careful, you miss what he's saying. Because, and I say this a lot, you can't just read one passage of Scripture and go, "Ooh, Jesus is making this promise." You have to read the stuff before it and the stuff after it. Okay? And oftentimes we read passages of Scriptures like fortune cookies sometimes, and we read a passage like that, and we're like, "Okay, God, here's my wish list. Make it all come true." And then we get frustrated when we pray to God, and he doesn't give us what we want. But here's what I notice when you read it in context, okay? When we read it out of context, we see God as a genie, okay? You kind of have the Jesus genie. You rub the genie and boof, he comes out and he gives you 3 wishes and you're happy and you get to move on with life. But it's interesting that Jesus made it very clear. God is the what? He's the gardener. He's not a genie. How many of you have a garden? None of you have a garden? Okay, good. It's like, is he going to make fun of me because I have a garden? No, I had a garden at my last house for almost 15 years, and I loved growing tomatoes. And what I learned about tomatoes is you plant seeds in early May, but you don't get fruit until when? End of August. At best, unless you're just way better gardener than me, you don't get fruit. You have to wait, and part of that you have to weed the garden, you have to hoe the garden, you have to water the garden, you have to take care of it. Well, that's what God does. And see, sometimes we're asking for things for God, and He's like, "Look, you're a seed. You're not ready to produce fruit yet. You got to trust me in this. You have to allow the gardener to do his job." And we just stay connected to the vine. And there's where we receive nutrients, and there's where we receive energy, and before long, we're going to bear fruit. See, in life, so many times, though, we look to the wrong things to fulfill us. We look out and we go, "Okay, it's not about staying connected to the vine anymore. It's about those things." So we try to fill our lives with entertainment. We run from one event to the next, and we get to the end of our day, and we say, "Man, God, I just don't have a lot of time for you right now because I've been busy." But hear me, you don't get things like love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, self-control from a concert. You don't. You don't get it from your phone. You don't get it from social media. You don't get it from your job. You don't get it from pretty much anything else in this world except staying connected to our Creator. You get them from Jesus because you stayed connected to the vine. A couple of weeks ago, I had the opportunity to go to a retreat with several pastors, and I was invited from a friend of mine, and we were in Montana, one of the most beautiful states I've ever been in my entire life. But I'll never forget, we got there, and it's It's a ministry for ministers, okay? And ministers have a high burnout rate, and these guys started this ministry, and they minister to ministers. So we're there, and Chase, the guy that kind of runs the lodge for us, he informed us because we all have our phones, okay? Mine right here. We have our phones, and we're looking for the Wi-Fi. Can we connect on Wi-Fi? And Chase laughed. He said, "I'm sure all of you have tried to log on to the internet. We have Wi-Fi, but you don't get the password." Now, I'm an hour and a half from the closest grocery store, okay? We're out in the middle of Nowhereville, Montana. I'm telling you, I've never been so, away from people. There's only 1 million people in the entire state. The largest city is Billings, Montana. It's 43,000 people. Boardman's bigger than the largest city in Montana, okay? So we're out in the middle of nowhere, and we have sketchy phone service at absolute best, and it forced me to disconnect. And I got to be honest with you, it was 4 of the best days of my life. I reconnected with Jesus in ways that I haven't connected with him in a long time. And I was just reminded of a lot of things. And see, the truth is, if I could give you any advice at all, go to Montana would be one of them. The second is that we have to be willing to slow down. We have to be willing to slam on the brakes. We have to be willing to say no to a few things. We have to be willing to disengage from the world around us to connect with Jesus at a deeper level. Because if we don't, we'll quickly find that we don't have as much joy, we don't have as much love, we don't have as much peace, patience, kindness, goodness, faithfulness. We don't have those things in our life, which leads to the second thing that I want to talk about this morning, and that is God doesn't want to cut you off. He just might want to cut something out. And this is the part that we don't like. He wants to maybe cut something out of our life. In verse 2 of John 15, he cuts off every branch of mine that doesn't produce fruit. And he prunes the branches that do bear fruit so that they will produce even more. Isn't it interesting that you would think he would prune away the stuff that's worthless, but he actually prunes away the good stuff, which gets back to the whole thing with grapes. They're pruned for 3 to 5 years before they produce. See, the act of pruning sometimes can appear harsh. God is our gardener, and sometimes he has to do some cutting. He has to cut some things out, and we want to blame God.